You okay with that?
Well, if it's in Islam, then yes, of
Okay,
course.
so you're
What?
okay with chapter 4, verse 24. If you take a woman captive, jihad, spoils of war, and she's married, and the Quran says she's lawful for you because by taking her captive, you dissolve the marriage, and you can have sex with her. You're okay with that?
I'm not sure if it says that. If it says that,
Yes,
then
it
I
does.
have to
Open
do it.
up chapter 4, verse 24, and I'm going to give you the Sahih hadith.
Shameless Shamoun, better known as Sam Shamoun, asserts that Islam legalizes adultery and rape by allowing Muslims to have conjugal relations by force with captive women in the presence of their husbands. Such a claim is false. Neither the Prophet nor his companions allowed for such actions. The reality is that slavery was a transhistorical phenomenon, and Islam had to adapt to these circumstances, bringing social reforms for concubines and slaves in general. So what is Sam even talking about?
It has an historical background. I'm
I'm going
not
to
a
give you the
Muslim.
historical background. The background was the Muslims went to war at Awtas. This is Sunan Abu Dawud. It's Sahih. And they took beautiful captive women in a ghazwa, an expedition sent by Muhammad. And these women, their husbands were alive. They didn't want to touch them. And Allah said, you can touch them. Just make sure they're not pregnant. I'm going to give you the historical context, but let's first read it. 424. Wedded women, meaning married women, you cannot touch, save except what your right hands own. So if there's a married woman, you can't touch her except those that your right hands possess. Now let me get you the hadith for this historical context. Friend, can you read it for us? You want to read, or you want me to read it for you? He's reading it already and he's shocked. You want me to read it for you? See, he's shocked. You see his reaction. See, by your action, I can tell you that because you bear the image of the true God, it's not a face, it's bothering you, which is good. There's hope for you.
Sam Shamoun begins to argue that Surah 424 advocates for rape and adultery. However, he fails to recognize that concubinage predated Islam, which inherited this existing practice. The Prophet introduced numerous reforms aimed at gradually phasing out slavery and concubinage, including legal protections for concubines against rape, sexual crimes, and abusive men. Concubinage, al-sur, was a legal relationship akin to marriage, al-nikah, between a free man and his female slave. In classical Arabic, the term concubinage is linguistically related to marriage. As they say, concubine, surah, derives from concubinage, a sar, which is rooted in the word for marriage, a nikah.
So let me read it. Abu Sayyid al-Khudri said, the apostle of Allah sent a military expedition to Awtas on the occasion of the Battle of Hunain. They met their enemy and fought with them. They defeated them and took them captives. Some of the companions of the apostle of Allah were reluctant to have relations with female captives because they're pagan husbands. So Allah, the Exalted, sent down the Quranic verse, and all married women are forbidden unto you, save except those captives whom your right hand possess. So your God said, don't worry about it. You can have sex with them. This is to say that they are lawful for them when they complete their waiting period. Only thing you have to do is make sure they're not pregnant. Because if you have sex with them, they're pregnant. You don't know if it's your child or their husband's child. So be honest with me, since you have no problem. If you're living at the time Muhammad, theoretically, and Muhammad sent an expedition to attack your village, he took your mother captive, your sister captive, I don't know if you have a wife and daughter, and your grandma, and they were taken captive, and they had sex with these women. Are you okay with them doing that to your mother, your grandmother, your wife, your sister, your daughter?
Sam continues to argue that Muslims were seeking to exploit captive women. However, the moral justification for their capture was that these women had supported their husbands in battle, posing an existential threat to the Muslims during the Battle of Hunain. As a result, they were captured.
No, no, no,
Say it again.
no.
So then why are you okay that Muhammad did it to other people's mothers, wives, daughters, and sisters? Because that's what he did. This is the historical context. So why are you okay that he did it to other people's women when you're not okay if he did it to your women?
Well, that's like that happened at a different time in a different context.
And you know in your heart, because I can see your reaction, this is evil, this is wicked, this is adultery, to take my wife and then have sex with her in front of my eyes just because Allah allowed you to do it. This is disgusting.
It should be noted that the companions of the Prophet did not engage in sexual relations with the captive women, and in fact, their husbands were not even present, having abandoned their women. Once again, Sam's argument is deceptive. The companions of the Prophet were initially reluctant to engage with the captive women because they were unaware that once a pagan woman converted to Islam, it became permissible to consummate the relationship. Additionally, these women were not forced to convert. Rather, they embraced Islam after learning about it and seeing it as a better alternative to paganism. It is important to mention that, under customary tribal law in pre-Islamic Arabia, women had virtually no legal status. Fathers sold their daughters into marriage for a price, husbands could end the union at will, and women had little to no rights to property or inheritance. In cases where a couple is captured together, their marriage remains valid, and it is not permissible to turn the captive wife into a concubine. This is the position held by the Hanafi, Hanbali, and other Islamic jurists. Now, concerning the sensitive issue of rape, classical Islamic scholars have already addressed it. I will now present the probative details on this matter. I have included just a few quotes on this topic. There are more, but for the sake of brevity, I have listed only a few. Now, regarding what happened to the captives early in the video, you might be surprised. After their pagan husbands converted to Islam, these women were given the choice to stay with the Muslims or return to their husbands. They chose to return to their husbands. It should also be noted that the Muslims did not have sexual relations with these women. In order for this to happen, a woman taken as part of the war booty had to be assigned to a new guardian, who would bear the responsibility of caring for her, similar to a wife. He would integrate her into the society by providing her with the necessary amenities and resources to take care of her. In return, he was permitted to consummate the relationship with his captive woman. However, in this version of the story, the Prophet delayed distributing the booty, hoping that the women's husbands would also embrace Islam, and they did. As a result, the women were not assigned to anyone else, and no one had relations with them except for their previous husbands. Although Islam permitted concubinage, Surah 425 suggests that manumitting these women and elevating their status by marrying them is a more favorable option than keeping them as slaves. The Prophet Muhammad exemplified this sentiment by marrying Safiya. He also sought to marry Lady Rayhana, but she chose to remain a concubine instead. In conclusion, Sam Shamoun is an academic fraud who distorts Islamic texts with the intent of deceiving uninformed Muslims and steering them away from their faith. His entire presentation is rooted in deliberate misinterpretations of our sources.